how to start. Like I can say that Sonja is a writer. She wrote two wonderful books, both dedicated Russia in different ways. One is more personal, which is called My Pink Way to Russia, and about how Sonja started visiting Russia back in Soviet times and meeting people, meeting women, meeting different people in the communities, visiting different cities, and how it became personal to her. I would not tell any more because you will present that. And another book is called Pink Flamingos. It's based on the interviews of queer people around Russia, recorded in the 90s. If I'm not mistaken, it 10 stories in this book, but there were more stories recorded, and I also think Sonja.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here and so happy to speak to you all. I'm sorry, we're speaking in English and we're in Belgrade, but Dobar dan, and I know some Serbian from my family, and privyet to all the Russians. So I'm very happy to be here, but I understand that we have to just use one language, and I think it'll be okay. Um, so I wanted to tell you that my family, my father uh, was born in Budva, Montenegro, and grew up in Aleksinac. And my mother is from Croatia, from the island of Kirk. And my parents met in New York, and after World War II. And I was born in New York. But I wanted to study Russian. And I was in college and I was very attracted to Russian literature. I just loved Russian literature. And so I became a translator actually. And I did a lot of different jobs. But then in the 1990s, I had the wonderful opportunity to join the first delegation to Russia of gays and lesbians from North America. And there were about 70 people, if you can believe. We all came to first to Leningrad at the time, and then to Moscow after that. Uh, and there was a film festival, there were discussions, there were people exchanged information, they made friends. It was just an amazing festival. And that's where I really began my interviews. I had my first interview was there with someone who really wonderful person. And so I started doing audio interviews and on this little machine, and it, made some terrible recordings. I know Anna has listened to some of them, but
Yeah, I remember that I needed to be in extremely quiet place and put the sound level very high and listen like this. Yeah.
but I know actually now things can be improved because I've been seeing some documentaries where they take voices from the early 20th century and they can actually improve the sound. But anyway, so these were my first interviews, and I then decided to go back to Russia the next year, and I went on the Trans-Siberian Railroad with two of the friends I made there, and they were from Novosibirsk, a couple, Lena and Asya, and we stopped in Novosibirsk. I did some interviews there, and then went on to Moscow. And I eventually I just kept finding ways to come back to. Is everything okay? No,
No, no, no, no, no. Sorry, it's
it's
just
okay.
having.
So I did come back the next year, and I taught English in Moscow. And there, my friends in Moscow were starting the Moscow Gay and Lesbian Archives. This is an incredible project that went on for, up until a few years ago. And it was not only collecting materials, but it was, a meeting place. People would come there and meet each other. It was fantastic. So I worked with them also, and I found some other people to interview in Moscow, and I went to other places too. I even went to Ukraine. I don't have any recorded interviews from Ukraine, but I did meet people in Ukraine and other places. And so in a in 1995, so I was working there in another project in Novosibirsk. And in Novosibirsk, I started working with some people in Siberia to put on a film festival in Tomsk. And at the same time, we were collecting interviews for a possible film. And so I did some interviews on videotape with the help of a videographer, Tracy Thompson. And we would go around in Siberia and we took about 8 very long interviews and on videotape. We had some very interesting adventures. And I remember this one time. It was very difficult, actually. We had heard about this professor in Tomsk who lost her job because she was a lesbian. This is what I mean. It wasn't very clear. You know how it is, but people were implying that this is what happened. We went to her house. We set up the video camera. Tracy was all ready to go. Tracy, by the way, did not know any Russian. And she was so great about getting the cues, from me about what to do and what was going on. She was just amazing. So we set up all of these cameras. And the professor said, no, I will not do the interview. This is not something you will convince people is okay, she said. It's just not okay. It's not natural. That's what she said. Meanwhile, she's living there with her partner. So anyway, it was very sad that she said that, but she was obviously very traumatized by her experience. She was harassed and everything. So, but her partner was very sweet to us. I remember she took Tracy by the face and kissed both of her cheeks. She said, "You are so sweet," and this and that. And then the professor said, "What did you do that for?" So anyway, that was a very difficult experience. But then we had other incredible experiences like this. This one interview we did with a man who was in the gulag for 18 years, 3 different sentences. He was in Novosibirsk. We did an interview. We did 2 interviews with him because he was so interesting and he was such a good storyteller. And I remember so clearly that when he talked about sexual, relationships in the prison that he didn't just talk about it as sex. He kept using the word "lyubov." And I was so touched by that, it almost made me cry. It was so touching how he felt, even in prison, even with all these accusations and the traumas and everything else. He just had that. He was just a very good person. I thought he was a wonderful person. Anyway, so the other thing I wanted to tell you along these lines is that we ended up in 1996 in Tomsk. We had a film festival called Pink Flamingo Film Festival. And this was actually named by the people there. And Sergei Kuzmin. He was the leader of the organization Astart. And it was a very wonderful film festival. And actually, I have a really nice film that was made by a woman named Marina Bachanova. It's on YouTube, and I have it on my website, a link to it. But she talks about this film festival 25 years later and how it's I will send you the link, Anna, so you can have it too separately. But um, it was a very positive experience in many ways. The people were very nice. When the news spoke to people on the street, they said, well, why can't people love who they want to love? And then, I mean, there were also conversations that I had with people that were, very prejudicial. People were saying things like, oh, they're all perverted and this and that. And I remember this one conversation I had with the people working in the film room. And we were sitting outside and I was doing a little interview with them and they said, oh, these gays and oh, they're so perverted and they're this and they're that, saying all terrible things. And I said, but I'm a lesbian. And they said, no, you're not. And then and then they continued to go on. And I don't know, I don't understand that whole thing, except that people have a certain level of what they're supposed to think, I guess. And then the other level of, the reality of they like the people who are gay and lesbian, So we had a wonderful festival, and I did more interviews there, and that's what that's basically. Oh, and then in 2004, oh, so I do want to say that after the festival, um, I went back to Moscow and worked with my friends in the Gay and Lesbian Archive, and they helped me put this book together. They helped me with transcribing it. It was first in Russian, and then I translated it into English. I should have shown you the Russian copy, but anyway, it was sold out the first year. It was sold out because, gay.ru. I don't know if you heard of that website, but it was the Russian website and they promoted it and I did a presentation in Moscow with about my interviews and the book, and it was the room was full. I remember feeling so wonderful there, and you'll appreciate this because they talked about me as a fellow Slavic person, and that my parents were from Yugoslavia. At that time, it was still Yugoslavia, and then oh no, it wasn't actually, but they were just talking about how I was a fellow Slav, and I felt very good. I mean, all through my time there, I did behave like an activist. In other words, I helped people, talk about this. If they ever asked me to go on television about it, it was helpful, and I did it, and I did interviews there also, and so it was all very helpful, I think, for people there. And then, of course, what happened, what has happened now since 2000, whatever, 2005 or 2006. Terrible things. So, anyway, I'm very glad that this book was published. And I will have the Russian one available again. It's on my website. I had it on there, but I think that I will not have the other one available until I find out if I will be publishing it. But Pink Flamingos I will put on my website in Russian so you can read it. And thank you again, Anna,
And
for all
thank
your
you.
work and for
Uh,
asking me about Anna asked me, Anna
no,
asked me about these interviews and I started to send them to her. And it was just great because I was able to kind of collect them and start, thinking about how I'm going to archive them and everything. So,
Yeah, but for me, it's very interesting because at first I read stories in the book, 10 of them, and I was extremely touched. For me, maybe for my some personal reasons, especially was this story about the wedding in a village. It was something,
oh,
the moment when I decided I need to find Sonia, I need to write to her and I need to ask if there are more stories available. But after I was listening to stories, which also were like extremely touching, extremely inspiring, or otherwise very about trauma, about like misunderstanding with families, and but there were so many interviews. How were you choosing these 10 stories which made up the book?
well, we decided to focus on the video interviews because they were so much more in depth, longer, and they were better than the others. So, and they were all in Siberia. So we decided to make it a Siberian, interview book. But that one about that you were talking about, Anna, is just a wonderful story. I'll tell it now. But she was very reluctant to speak to me. Her name was Sveta. I call her Marina in my book because I changed some of the names just to that because they wanted me to. So Sveta came to talk to me, and she was very shy and very reluctant. And then finally, she wanted to just speak to me by myself, and we went off under the trees, and she spoke to me about what happened with this relationship. She was very in love with her girlfriend, and they could not imagine how they were going to live together. How were they going to live together? So it was really the suggestion of her girlfriend to say, well, why don't you just be a man, and then I'll be a woman, and we'll get married. And they actually got married, we'll get married, and um, we'll go to a little town, and nobody will know us there. And Svanta said it was very difficult behaving as a man. She was like, she would be in these situations where, she was working in a shop or auto shop or something like that. And the men would start taking off their shirts, their their t-shirts or something, and of course she couldn't do that. But all the things that men do that are kind of like a little bit gross, she kind of got, it's just not her thing. But anyway, she did it for 3 years. Isn't that amazing? And they actually, even her mother, even the girlfriend's mother, thought that this was a real marriage and they were really man and wife, and she got some furniture from them and everything, and it was supported by them. And then one day, when Sveta got home from a trip, I guess to see her mother, they were not in Novosibirsk. Um, she felt the presence of a man there. She felt that there was something had happened. It turned out that her girlfriend had started relating to somebody that she knew, someone who came to visit her or something. And they broke up, but it was not a very dramatic or anything. She just accepted it, but she still, at the time of the interview, really still loved her girlfriend and wished that they were together. But that was her experience. And then, later I did see her uh, in later years. I saw her, at one of the bars in Novosibirsk, and talked to her a little bit, and she was kind of down, depressed. She had a whole different life, I guess. But unfortunately, she got into a fight with somebody with another lesbian over a girl, over a woman, and she was knifed and died. The other one stabbed her and died, and she died. Sveta died. She's dead. So it's a terrible, terrible end. But those things happen, and I'm really glad we have her story. It's so important, and that's what happened with her.
Do you keep in touch with other people who you interviewed for this book or during the whole time you were visiting?
Just a few people now. It's a lot. I haven't been to Russia in a long time, and I'm very much in touch with um, my friend Lana and in Moscow, who was with the archives. I'm still in touch with her, and I still have connections in Novosibirsk with some of those women and men also. So yes, I do keep in touch with many of the people who I knew there. Not all of the people who I interviewed, but yeah, I've lost touch with many of them.
Maybe someone from the audience, if you want to ask a question or.
Outside food? Yeah.
Oh, sure. And come here, come closer.
Hi,
Hello.
so nice to meet you. I was wondering if you could discuss the topic of preservation of this kind of material. I know there are different ideas. There are nowhere enough institutions that are reliable enough to entrust with this kind of material, especially diaries and photographs. I have a friend in London. She started to trade in this kind of thing, and I am very much on the edge about that because
What do you mean trade?
I mean there are collectors of ephemera, of letters, of photographs. And I don't know what to think about it because, on one way, these people are ready to preserve this, but commercializing this kind of thing seems a bit bad. I don't know how to express it.
Yes, I agree with you. I just had a conversation last week with someone I met in Birmingham, who I gave some of my archives to, and he told me a story um, about one of the archives doing some kind of a money uh, arrangement about getting into, and he was very much against this, and I didn't even know that this was going on until he said that, and now you're saying it. It's very interesting. Why would they want to do that? Why would they? Is it? I mean, for what reason? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, there is a question also, yeah, from.
Yeah.
Well, the reason is twofold. One is so many queer people don't have anybody to support them in their old age. So supporting them by buying their material is one thought. And another thought is that somebody who is prepared to pay for it will probably keep it and will probably preserve it and will probably publish it. But I think that this is not right. But what are the alternatives? There are nowhere enough institutions or foundations preserving the memory of our kind.
Yes. I think it's very important that we preserve it and that we publicize it to preserve it also, because I think if we keep it as a thing to be sold or somehow, not publicized, I don't know, that's what worries me, is that could it be used against people? You know what I mean? And that's not good either. So I I personally think it's better to just be open about it. And just what I think about preserving my own archives is I'm going to give it to some, just pieces of it to different places. But this place that I gave it to, this archives, it's called uh, Invisible Histories Project. And this project is connected with other queer archives in the United States. They have a whole connection, a network. And I like this way of preserving it, and they're going to digitize it and make it like accessible like a library, like you would go to the library and you can look at it. So I think that's a good way to preserve. But
And
I'm very interested in this discussion. Thank you for bringing it up.
And are some parts of your archive put in, like you said that there are videos somewhere in archive in Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken, like because
Yeah.
maybe also putting in archive in one country in current political state, it's also can be a bit complicated, and if it's dispersed,
Yes.
there is a high possibility to preserve.
Yes. It's a very good idea, I think. Yes. And um, well, I just also wanted to mention that in, I don't know what year it was, like 2012, maybe 2013, there were these two Swedish women, Anna Rickson and Anna Viola Hallberg, who did a very interesting queer installation called State of Mind. And they asked me if they could use some of my footage in St. Petersburg when they showed it. And they did. They actually showed some of the films in St. Petersburg at that time. So people would go into the museum, and they could go into a room and look at one video and another video. It was very interesting. They asked me for that. And I think and that's when I began to call it the Pink Flamingo Archives. That's what I'm calling my archives. So, but right now, if people want something like Anna, they can ask me, so, but soon it will get more, known in the archive circles.
There is also a question from chat. Hello, thank you for this talk. Do we know if there is anything left from the Moscow Gay and Lesbian Archive? In what format it exists and what happened to it after?
Well, that's a very good question. But as you can imagine, they had to hide it, bring it somewhere else. So we don't know where the archives is. It still exists, but the archive itself, the physical archive is not available. I hope at some point that it will be again, but it is not now. This was an incredible thing, though, I have to tell you. But this was like at the height of the Moscow Gay and Lesbian Archives. It was really one of my greatest times when I be in Moscow is to be there on Thursday when people would come up there. I mean, it was in my friend's apartment. The books were all around, the newspaper clippings, people were reading, people were talking, they were playing the piano, singing. It was such a wonderful meeting place. I mean, people just were able to talk, and it was very important thing for a long time in Moscow. And people heard about it, and they knew where to go, and it was very important.
And how was this archive made? Like some members of the community, some people were bringing their diaries or whatever.
And and the people who collected, they actually found books, got books, collected books, mostly Lana and other people who worked on the archives brought all of this material together. Yes, and many scholars came there too, people who researched from other countries. They would come there, they knew where to go. So, yeah, it was very good. And they digitized everything so now it is actually, there is but again, it's not available, I don't think. But
Yeah, I think before they had a website where you were able to write them, but now it's a different situation. And what about your Pink Flamingos archive? Was it used for any kind of research?
Oh, yes, yes. And also, it's part of the Moscow archives. It is part of all the videos are there also. But yes, and I think that, this example of what happened in St. Petersburg is, it's really good. People got to see some of it. I don't know if anything will happen with the videos themselves, but, I have shared them with people, and so yes, in a way, yes, it has been used.
Why wouldn't they just move this archive to another country, or like, I don't know, like any neighboring? Yeah, so why wouldn't they just move this archive in another country when the situation has changed in Russia? Like,
Why wouldn't they move it to another country?
yeah, to another country, right? Country?
Well,
Yeah.
that's, it's up to them. This is what they chose to do now, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in Russia. It's actually, I mean, I don't know if are you from Russia?
Hi.
Do
Yes.
you know how bad it is there now? I'm afraid to go to Russia. I would not go.
living there for a long time.
I would not go, because mainly because of my work and I don't know what they would do to me. I mean, look what they did to the basketball player. I mean, who knows what they would do. And then, I have friends who wrote books about Russia who do not want to go to Russia now. So it's a very dangerous situation, and I think we can't underestimate it. So I think they made the right choice for now. And then there are other sources like my archives, and people can get other uh, sources. They can get other material that way.
Are there any comparable archives here in Serbia or anywhere in former Yugoslavia? Or are there any books about it?
I don't know of any in former in anywhere there. I don't know of any. No. My books are translated, are both are the first Pink Flamingos was in Russian, and my second book was translated in 2020. It was published, but then you know what they did? They asked me to take out some pages from the guy who was in the gulag for 18 years. They didn't like the where he talked about his first relationship when he was 15. Oh my goodness, this is children. This is children, You can't talk about children. So anyway, so they asked me to take that out. I took that out of the book, and then they kept publishing. Then they came to me again, and they said all references to LGBT should be taken out of the book. Well, that's almost the entire book. So I took the book away. Basically, they censored me. They said, I can't publish, that was a way of saying I cannot publish the book in Russia. So it is translated into Russian, and I am going to try to publish it in something outside of Russia and see if it can be published.
I guess even here in Serbia there is a publishing house who moved from Russia.
No Kidding Press.
Non-Kidding Press, it's called. Do you know them or not?
Tell me the name again.
I will write you a message.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is it from Belgrade?
Originally, they were based in Russia, but
It's as I understand it, as I remember, it's Moscow-based publishing was, and they published a lot of feminism literature, some more about women.
Nice.
Yeah. They're really famous and published a lot of good world books before 2022, but of course now they closed. And one of the girls that she was part of this publishing in Russia, she's moved to Belgrade, now living here, and she opened publishing here.
Oh, that would be great.
And I think we can communicate you if you.
Yeah, that would be great. I would be very happy.
I had maybe a question about the current political situation also in the US. I mean, I imagine you're in the US now. I don't know if you're in New York.
Yes.
I mean, I guess, I don't know if but I've been a bit following the politics there. And I was just wondering, how do you feel, in general, or do you feel like censor is also coming in your way, or has it already come now? And also, how do you feel about, even though you talked about collaborating with this archive, how safe do you feel about the possibility that it will actually happen, or yeah?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Right now, I'm living in Florida, which is, I would say, one of the worst places as far as censorship. They're censoring Black history, things that people already know. They want to wipe it out, Okay, so gay and lesbian books, many gay and lesbian books have been banned, but what they're banned from schools. Okay, so again, it's this whole thing about children, which I want to talk about it a little later. But so this is the banning that's going on, but people say that actually the banning of the books makes them read it even more. So it's not like in Russia where it's actually taken out of circulation, They're banned just for schools. I'm not saying that I don't feel good here. I will be honest with you. I do not feel good in this country. And I live part of the year in Spain. I feel much safer in Spain. I'm, I don't know if we will eventually, decide to live there full time. But right now we're living a little bit here and a little bit there. So the censorship that's going on, people are nervous about gay and lesbian marriage being taken out. I mean, but it's hard to imagine what would happen in the society. But, we never thought that this amount of attacks on immigrants would happen. This open violence that they are doing about immigrants, on immigrants, this is really true. And people are protesting it and trying to stop it. And I mean, this could happen to gays and lesbians too. It could happen to people who have different political ideas, but we are not there yet. I'm just saying. So, and when you read history, like about Nazism or, even Putin, it takes time to develop this whole thing, So I wanted to tell you something that I really like the book by Masha Gessen on Russia. What does she call it? History, something with history in the title. But it's a very good book. And in that book, they talk about, I'm sorry, Masha Gessen is non-binary. And but I met Masha Gessen when she was a lesbian in 1991. And she was one of the leaders of our group in 1991. So it's really great. Anyway, I really appreciate their work and their books, and I've read most of their books. But the book on Russia, where they describe how Putin started this whole myth, this whole slander on lesbians and gays as pedophiles. And this took many years, I would say, 10 years or so, they're developing it. And then they started openly talking about, they use words like the pedophile lobby or something. They accuse Ukraine of the Russian leadership, not only Putin, but others, accuse Ukraine of degrading their family values and so on. Well, the reason I'm talking about this is, and your question is good, is that I feel that Trump has some kind of connection with Putin in that way. He talks the same way about traditional family values, whatever that is. And let's not hurt the children. Well, who is the pedophile? Who is the pedophile? We now know that Trump is actually a pedophile. Trump, in the whole Epstein files, that they have uncovered, he has actually done that with 14-year-old girls or whatever. And, so we know that now. And so I just wanted to say that, and that, isn't this traditional family heterosexual model, isn't that an ideology? Putin accuses the LGBT people of having an ideology in Ukraine and that he has to defeat this ideology. Isn't that heterosexual family values an ideology? Anyway, that's my little 2 cents.
I'm really sorry, but I have a really strange question. You tell about situation.
We cannot see you, so if you want to come closer.
I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm Tanya, and I have a really strange question. You tell about situation in all of USA. About lesbian and gay situation, but only in California. I mean, Florida. Sorry.
Very different parts of US.
I'm really sorry. This situation only in Florida, on all of location in USA.
Well, I mean, as far as lesbians and gays, we got same-sex marriage all over the country. But there were times, there was, for example, when my partner and I wanted to get married, there was a Christian law, Christians that organized in California, when we were living in California, to stop gay marriage. It would happen for several years. And we had to go to New York to get married. We went to New York to get married. This was in 2011. And, but, there have been a lot of, for example, some of the Christian organizations try to stop this. In fact, it's behind some of the people who are trying to get it overturned in the Supreme Court. But that is all over the country. In Florida, we've had this governor who's kind of, he's a little bit extreme, with his anti-LGBT. He tried to stop. He banned drag shows. You know what drag shows are?
Oh, yes.
No. Okay, why does this harm anybody? If people want to dress in a different dress and want to have fun, why does this bother anybody? What harm can it possibly do? He's trying to paint all the rainbows in Florida. I mean, it's kind of a joke, really. And as soon as the Department of Transportation, this is like they're taking it so seriously, they go and they paint over the rainbows. And as soon as then more gays and lesbians try to paint the rainbows, they come again and it's crazy. What harm does a rainbow do to anybody? But I mean, this level is a little bit, it sounds a little bit, that's not so serious, but it is serious because they're trying to erase us. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to erase anything that we, are in our contributions too.
But it's
Yes.
what's happening, for example, currently with Stonewall webpage and everything that mentions of transgender people is removed. So it's like the first step is already happening. And
yes, you're correct. Future is history. How totalitarianism reclaimed Russia. The future is history. That's the book I was referring to, but there are other books they have written that are very good. Yeah.
May I ask?
there is actually a question behind you. It was before.
Okay.
Thank you a lot for the conversation. When I was in Russia, I did LGBT activism for some time. I know how difficult it is to do that and how many difficult things you meet during doing activism relating to LGBT topic in Russia. And when I was in Russia and I worked in LGBT film festival, I met a lot of researchers. I met a lot of artists who came to Russia during that time and who did their research about people in Russia. Why do you think there's such an impulse of researching coming from abroad? And how did you get your impulse to come to such a country that was totally not friendly to people who want to do this research? But still, I met very brave people who did their research and who had this stamina to publish their books and to do research. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were. Where were you doing activism?
In St. Petersburg, from like 2015 to 2000.
Yeah. How great. Anyway, why did I? Well, I would say, as I told you when I came with the group in 1991, I was so excited about meeting some of the people. I mean, the ones who came from Siberia were they were so enthusiastic, and they were so brave. Can you imagine? At that time, people didn't travel very much in the Soviet Union, as you know. These are big distances. They came all the way from Novosibirsk to Leningrad and Moscow. So I thought they were very brave, and we were doing actions such as giving out condoms and publicizing about AIDS. We were kissing in front of the statue of Yuri Dolgoruki. I don't know if you know where that is in St. Petersburg. And we did these actions And we demonstrated in front of the Bolshoi Theater and so on. And some of the Russians came with us, but it was mostly us doing it, you know. And at that time, well, I have to tell you, perestroika had started. We were there a month before the Soviet Union fell. Can you imagine? So we were there July, and August was when the big collapse happened. And so after that, there were so many openings. People wanted to talk about this. There were magazines, newspapers. It was amazing how many came out during that time. And so, I mean, it was something I wanted to do because I was very interested in Russia. And, you know, I explain a lot of that in my book. So maybe you'll read it sometime.
But how, at the very first moment, you get in this group of American gays and lesbians who went to Russia?
Yes, it was like, I think it was a book conference or something, a gay and lesbian book conference in San Francisco. I was living in California then. Um, and I just went to the table and I met Julie Dorff, who was actually, she was girlfriends with Masha Gessen at the time. And the two of them were organizing this delegation. And I said to Julie, I said, well, I speak Russian, so I could help with translating. And she said, oh, we could give you a little, you know, scholarship to come with us. And I said, absolutely, I want to come. So I decided to go then. And I'm very glad I did, because it had such a big, I don't know how I can tell you what a big important thing it was in my life. It was really wonderful. I enjoyed the whole time I was there. I met so many wonderful people. And I'm so sorry that, you know, the political situation is so bad now. I never imagined it would get this bad. I never imagined. But I never imagined we would have what we have in the United States now. I never imagined this. So you don't know how things will change.
Feel the same. Yeah, feel the same.
Yeah.
You had a question?
Yeah, I had a question. Right now. Like, I'm sorry, it takes time to formulate. So like, yeah, I had this question about the, I don't know, changing of the overall attitude in different countries towards LGBT people, and how do you feel about this tension? Like, if someone wants to speak with their real name, and somehow it makes this way into archive, but then situation changes, and like speaking with real name really helps with establishing something, like gaining visibility and making it normal, accepted in the society. But when the situation changes, the direction of political situation changes, that becomes dangerous for these people. And I don't know, how do you feel about that? Maybe there are some, uh, if someone decided to make to record stories today in Moscow, what advice would you tell these people how to preserve anonymity but still have this visibility?
Yes. Yeah, these are very important questions. I mean, I have to say that when I was asked by the Swedish women, for example, in 2000, whatever that was, 12, I was reluctant to give them the videos. I said, but I don't want to put anyone in danger. And things weren't even so bad, but I had promised them that this would not become, but they said, well, it's just going to be in the art gallery. So it wasn't going to be on the internet. It is a very good question. And I'm thinking now that a lot of time has passed. People are either old or they're not even around anymore or whatever. And that it's okay in terms of my interviews. But if someone were to do it now, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say because it is truly dangerous. And I don't know how we can preserve these stories of today. Because one of the things that I know Anna and I spoke about this is the original idea of the film that we were going to do is about in Soviet lives, people who were there before perestroika. But we got very, very few interviews. It's like that woman who didn't want to speak about her experience, because they didn't want to be, partly because she didn't want to be open about it, and she didn't want to have more problems, I guess, but partly because of homophobia, just this idea that there's something bad about it. I don't know how we're ever going to get rid of that, but right now we're in this very patriarchal, heterosexual world, that is traditional family values, whatever that is. And, that's the world that we're in. And we're in a lower position. We're marginalized. And I don't know about preserving stories today, what that would be like. So there are some people who have left, but there are some who have stayed, some who don't really agree with Putin, but some who do. I am recently finding out that some of my friends from before are in agreement with Putin and trying to get Ukraine and all this stuff, this warmongering and all of this stuff, and that the West is poisoning them and all of this. I'm amazed. I'm amazed. But that is true, that there are people who have, changed their mind, and gone backwards. So I don't know.
We have a problem.
Yeah.
Do we have tire?
Sure.
Julia,
Sure.
we are getting out of charge the laptop. We need a charger and the laptop all not come. So yeah. Do you have any other questions? Oh, sure.
Yeah, I was wondering. So my favorite part of gay and lesbian archive has always been the very early LGBT press, starting from 1990 and on and on. And many of those newspapers were published in Siberia, in places like Omsk, Chita, etc. I was wondering if you met any of those people, because it's virtually impossible to find any information on how it was organized, how it was financed, how it was published. From many of those newspapers, we only have like 2 or 3 exemplars in archives, and that's it. So, have you met any of them?
Oh yes, I mean the ones I met, some of them in Moscow, but the ones in Omsk and I do know a few of those in Barnaul, and they how did they organize? Just in their own homes, it's actually, it happened here too in in our communities in the early days, people didn't had their own little printers and their own little, that they just printed themselves. It was not, there were a few magazines, I'm trying to think of the name, in Moscow that was very good, nice, slick magazines. Maybe I should bring some of my archives to Belgrade, huh? What do you think?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, why don't I? That would be great. So I go to Spain, but we'll try to make a connection.
Exchange the links, and I also currently had some thoughts because I have friends like very young, like 10 years, 15 almost years younger than me, girls who are starting their research work currently with also archival materials, and maybe it will be also an interesting exchange if you have materials there in US. And
Right.
so thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank to everyone who came today, to everyone who came offline, to everyone who came online and joined us today.
Thank you, all of you. So nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Another person is trying to say this is just about this energy which you have, this very,
thank you.
It's very positive, it's very bright, and it could be even felt just like from the portrait, and here with you being with us, it really could be felt. But also this kindness and your tenderness and how attentive you are to people with whom you communicated was possible to feel from the interviews and from your books as well. So thank you very much for this work. And
in my past, I was a documentary filmmaker, and in past, I was a documentary filmmaker, and you're the hero for cinema.
Thank you very much for saying that. I don't know if I told Anna this, but when I was making a second edition of my book, Pink Flamingos, and I was reading it again, I would cry because I would remember the interviews, and it was just so emotional for me. I was just correcting my own book, and tears would come to my eyes because I would remember some of these things that people said to me. I mean, these are not easy things to talk about, and people were trusting me and talking to me. It was really amazing experience.
And also I have a comment, like it every time I surprised, but I think I will stop surprised about it, how we have one feelings about what's happening now in the world, but we are living in different worlds. I thought before that America, Russia, like I know that you are not like American, but also you're living there. And I heard a speech from you today, and I like how we have so much in common, and it's crazy. And
Right.
it is in one way it's awful because I have some like maybe somewhere is better. But in another way, it's okay. It's also really good that we have so much in common.
Yes, it is really great.